Mark, more time on the training ground in theory this week, but it's been so wet. Has that been a bit of a challenge?
No, we've been good actually. I think we invested a lot of money in the last couple of seasons in the drainage at the training ground. So what we've seen is on the days where it completely buckets it down, which we've had a few, it does sit really heavy. We did have one day 2 weeks ago where we were just underwater and we couldn't train. But the good thing is, whereas it was puddling and staying for weeks or days, it disappears the next day. So it's soft. Don't get me wrong, it's cutting up, but it's absolutely playable. So. We trained Tuesday, trained really well Tuesday, trained again today and tomorrow, which sends us into the game well. I think the balancing act always is we need to practice, need to train, but we are limited on numbers at the moment, or stretched a little bit. So we don't want to overwork the players going into games. We haven't had many training days into games for a while now, so we've gone for 3 this week rather than 4 to try and get the balance between making sure players are fresh and fit and recovered, and full of energy going into the game, but also we get some practice as well. So we're trying to work that balancing act at the moment. This next period's nice really because we've got so many just Saturday games. Hopefully, it just gives us a little bit of time to do some work that we haven't been able to do. So firstly, I think physically that should help us going into games, but it just gives us a bit of time to practice really. And some of that is put in place some improvements. Some of it is just to literally repetitive practice on certain areas of your game, whether that's creating chances or defensive clearances or whichever. We'll do a bit of unit work today, so we'll try and cover everything throughout the week, but we've dealt with the conditions reasonably well, and thankfully we haven't had consecutive days of rain, so that'll be the problem when we get the days on top of each other. But other than that, other than being a little bit colder now, we've coped quite well.
Yeah, and what you're after really at the moment, I suppose there's an argument to say perhaps the biggest mystery or intangible in football, in that you're clearly a bit short of confidence, and getting that back, if there was a simple mechanism, then everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just comes with you can put good results together really. So we've had a couple of decent performances in the most recent run, but we haven't backed them up, which I think is where the confidence builds really, and also where the confidence can break as well. You know, when you have the back-to-back bad results or performances. And actually, some of the times, obviously, results haven't gone well, performances have been okay, but I think the performance levels have been too inconsistent or have dipped too much in recent weeks. So it's trying to get that back, because I think more often than not, if you look after the performance, the results will more often than not look after themselves. So that's what we've got to concentrate on over going into Saturday's game against a team that will come confident off the back of their first round win, I'm sure, and a decent start to the season. So we look forward to that. Obviously FA Cup's a brilliant competition to be in, so we're certainly excited for the potential that can lie ahead in the competition, but for trying to deliver a really good performance this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about Grimsby's credentials. Absolutely battered Plymouth in the last round, and generally, if you look at their record in League Two, they've been good away from home.
Very good away record, yeah, very good defensive record as well. And yeah, I thought the result and the performance against Plymouth was outstanding. I actually spoke to Steve Schumacher recently, just catching up from been on courses together over the last few years, and he spoke about Grimsby and how well they played on that day. He wasn't too happy with his own team's performance, but at the same time, really real credit to them. And I think it was probably a combination of Grimsby at their best that day. You know, a very, very hard running team, real high pressing team, will get the ball into forward areas and make you defend your box. And can counter-attack well, but they had a real energy about them on that day and ran hard, and all the statistics lead towards them being that kind of team. They've flipped the shape a little bit recently, gone to a back three in the last couple of games, but have changed in those games as well, so they've got a bit of flexibility in how they might play. So we have to ready ourselves for that, but I think the biggest thing we've got to do is make sure that we are at the level we want to be at, and we keep trying to find a way of firstly physically competing and grinding out some results, but also trying to be the best of what we can do, and the responsibility for me is to get that out of the players, and for the players is to do what they're good at.
Yeah, and last Saturday clearly wasn't a massively enjoyable experience, but it is easy to fixate on the last result, the last performance. I guess you're trying to strike that balance of the Bolton game, for instance, had loads of good stuff to take from it, while I guess also keeping in mind that Bolton and Accrington, different types of opponents, different challenges, and I don't know, you might disagree, but will Grimsby lean more into what you needed for the Accrington game than Bolton, or is it a mix between the two?
Well, in fairness, I think what we needed for the Accrington game more was what we did against Bolton, and we didn't find that level enough. And I think one of the big problems that we had at the moment, I think that you can't underestimate the 120 minutes, the physical load that went into the Bolton game. We were excellent. We were at our absolute limits to get something from the game and could have won the game. We went into the game on the Tuesday night a little bit fatigued by that. 120 minutes was a disaster for us, really, and that was still in us going into the weekend game. So that definitely carried. And I think when you look at a lot of the performances that have come at the end of 3 games, Bristol Rovers away was a disappointing game, but it came off the back of Derby and Ipswich at game 3 in the week. When you're so reliant on a small group of players at the moment who are a little bit low on confidence, that can happen. So we've had a few performances in there, results in there that have been disappointing, but actually performances alongside results that have just been not our level. And that can happen, I think, in any case of the season. But everything feels bigger and gets highlighted when you're in a run like we're in. So you can then look into it a little bit too much. I look back to last year, I can think about some games that were hopeless, rubbish games of football, really poor performances that we might have lost, but it wasn't in a bad run of losses, so it don't feel as bad. Or that we managed to get something from. I think the Accrington game's another case in point, probably with the Port Vale one, probably with the Bristol Rovers one, potentially with the Derby game, where we should take a point from the game and rip it up and say, right, that was rubbish. But I spoke to a lot of people last week that watched a lot of bad football matches. I think sometimes it happens. We don't want it to. We want to be better. We want to win, obviously. But you can sometimes be bogged down a little bit by previous performances. And the Curzon game, in and amongst the recent games, are obviously like they are. So we've got 1 game in the league to go in this block of 5. If we were to get a really positive result, it would be 7 points from 5 games, which is bang on schedule for us. So we're not actually too far away from results and points-wise where we need to be. We're a little bit shy of where we want to be, but certainly in the recent weeks, our performances, we want to see a better level of consistency in terms of finding the tempo that we want to play at.
And presumably the injury situation has remained pretty static in that the players who have been out, I don't think we were expecting anybody back, and fingers crossed the remainder have all been fine.
Yeah, everybody else is good. I mean, we've been nursing a little bit Sam Smith, Shiloh in recent weeks. We've had to put 1 or 2 obviously in the team when we wouldn't have liked to. We'd have liked to have given them a little bit of time between over that sort of last 6 weeks. So we've had to grind a few people through some spells, but they've come out the other side of that. Really, I think they're getting back to being ready to really influence the team a little bit more, and then that will come down to performances in training and games as to who plays and how much they're going to contribute. And then the only other one is Zeno's making some good progress, so Zeno will be back first as long as he continues the progress that he's making. We're probably talking a couple of weeks for him. Whereas everybody else will be the new year.
Cool, that's great from me.
Mark, it's fair to say the post-match reaction after the weekend from the crowd was mixed. Whilst you may understand the frustration, I guess it's not really going to help anyone, that kind of reaction.
Well, it helps people feel better in the moment, so it probably helps them. I mean, if I watch games of football that I don't like and I've paid to watch and want to be entertained, I'll probably boo it as well. So it doesn't matter. That is the way it goes. I mean, you take the plaudits when you win games. Sometimes you get told you're brilliant when you actually weren't very good, but you won. The scale of that can be massive. Our job is to give supporters a team that they want to watch, and hopefully is a winning team, but if not, is a team that can really hit a high level. And we've done that at times this year, but our home form recently hasn't been where we want it to be, and obviously people have been starved of goals. So I've got no problem with that whatsoever, and as long as people divert all their abuse to me, I'm fine with that. But just leave the players alone, because they need a little bit of help and support in a minute, because they're having a tough time. So I'll take it off of them and know that. Like, we've got good players and we have got a good side, and we've seen it actually within the last few weeks, but just not often enough. And we certainly saw it in the early part of the season, and we've certainly seen it over the last 2 years. But we're just in a spell that we're going through some tough little periods of time. But the good times will be back, because they always are. And the bad spell won't last as long as it feels when you're in it. It will turn at some point. I'm absolutely convinced of it. The players that were scoring goals, creating chances, being at the level that we want to, they haven't gone anywhere. They're just hibernating a little bit at the moment. It's my job to get it out of them and find a level of consistency. But we've got good men. We've got really good people and lads that want to do well. So I've got no doubt that we'll be able to turn those around. And hopefully that's this Saturday, and hopefully it's at Forest Green. But if it's not then it'll be at some point very soon. I know we're going to get better. And I know that reaction won't be the consistent one that comes. But I've got no problem with it. People want to see good performances and good results. And if they don't see them, they've got every right to have a little bit of a pop. So no drama with that. Hopefully this weekend we've got a good starting point. And that's, I think, the key, that everybody comes from the start with a real enthusiasm. And the flag waving and the singing in the Newmarket Road end that's supposed to bounce and be this like real hive of energy, that needs to be there in good games and bad games. That's what we need. So that's what we've been promised. So that's what we want, and we've promised them an entertaining team that they love watching, and they ain't got it at the minute. So we've got a little bit to do to do that as well.
Cheers.
Well, just on that point about the players and their drop in confidence, it's probably a difficult question to answer, but have you got any insight as to why confidence does drop in the way that it does across the whole team, like you're seeing at the moment?
I think it's very individual thing, probably normally, more often than not. And I don't know, like we make a big thing of it. I mean, for me, it's a little bit around, it's a get out sometimes, confidence, it's a get out. I mean, your responsibility is to believe in yourself and go and do what you do properly and not hide in those situations. So that's what the players have got to do, that's what we've got to do, because I think that's the main thing that is most important to us. But it can spread quickly, and it can come back quite quickly if you're a bit up and down in that side of things. I think the biggest insight I can give that I've probably learned over time is confidence is really fragile, and it can come and go quite quickly. But the best way of probably protecting it is to ignore everything else, ignore all the outside noise. Don't get dragged into what everybody's opinion is, because it doesn't really matter. What your own opinion and the team's opinion and what we think of each other is the most important thing. And then the second thing is, the only way you get through a bad time is to just work through it and fall back on your most basic principles. So if we do that, it's very easy to get confidence back. Actually quite simple. We'd probably say in the Wickham game, we go into that game in bad situation, we score a goal, and the confidence of the team just flooded back instantly. And then we end that game as a really confident team. We go into Peterborough as a confident team. And then it can get rocked quite quickly. So all we've got to do is try and put some games together, and that will come flooding back as fast as it can disappear. So I haven't really got too many concerns about that, because I think that the players have genuinely got a belief in themselves. But we just got to get through some tough moments in games. When it doesn't go our way, they're the moments that we have to respond really quickly and really positively in games.
With the lack of goals as well, do you change your preparation heading into a game like this? Do you place more of an emphasis on the attacking side of the game?
No, I don't think it's about emphasis on either side particularly, because that would insinuate that we set up to not score goals, which is obviously not the case. We want to be a forward-passing, forward-running, attacking team that gets loads of crosses in the box, loads of shots, that runs at people, that gets set plays in the top third and tries to stay in their half as much as possible. But sometimes it looks like that and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we're a bit too slow in getting the ball forward. Sometimes we haven't created the angles to build and play. So a lot of our work this week has been around our in-possession stuff, and we hope that follows into the game on Saturday. We'll increase our likelihood of scoring goals if we create more chances. So obviously we're looking at how and what we need to do in order to be a more creative team in this moment. And that can be player driven, that can be tactic driven, that can just be in terms of effort and intensity and forward thinking. All those things become really important, but it doesn't make us think, right, we better play 5 strikers and play some mad game. Like the most important thing when it isn't going so well is to be really consistent and really clear with what good looks like for us, and almost double down on this is the team we are, and let's just get back to and finding that level as much as we can, and the best level that we're capable. Because our best level is good enough to win games in this league. That's a fact. We know it. We've seen it already. So it's just about trying to do that, and we'll have to try and do that going into a good game this weekend.
Just finally, how good would it be to reach the third round, knowing what it can bring, i.e. with last year?
Yeah, look, I think this weekend's great. Round 1 seems a long way away from round 3. Round 3 can be the magic ball. We've been fairly fortunate in recent seasons that we've had 2 absolute unbelievable draws in this competition against 2 massive Premier League clubs over recent years. So we know what that can bring. So it's certainly the magic hat that we want to be in on Monday night. But it'll be a really tough game this weekend. I think we've seen that with their own performance level against Plymouth. And for us, hopefully the freedom of being in a game where it's a shootout, go on, whoever wins goes through, brings a little bit of liberation to us, and we can go and attack the game and have a right go, because we certainly would are desperate to get in the hat for the next round, because it can bring you your best days of your career. And the amount of people that have said to me that's their best ever day as a Cambridge fan, they're the moments that you want to create. So if we could get a result at the weekend, we want a performance, but being honest, we'll take a result anyway, which way it comes. So we want to be in the hat if we can be, but I know we're playing against a team that want the same thing.